Welcome to Nonprofit and Support Groups. I'm Brian McKinsey on The Voice at Access Sacramento. Today's show is all about the nonprofit group Breathe California Immigrant Trails. Please have a pen and paper ready with your minds and your hearts open. Today I'm going to be interviewing the CEO of Breathe California Immigrant Trails, Corey Titus. How are you today, Corey?
I'm terrific, thanks.
Good. And could you tell us a little bit about what Breathe California Immigrant Trails is?
You bet. We're actually a voluntary health organization. We've been in Sacramento since 1917, so we have a very long history. Started out as really fighting tuberculosis, and as we really got that under control, we moved on to other issues around lung health. So now really what we're looking at are three main areas. One is tobacco education and prevention, particularly for young people. Clean air, again, advocacy education programs, and looking at lung health issues, primarily asthma.
Right on. And I understand there's a pretty big event coming up that your organization is having, the Hack Academy Awards. Can you explain to the listeners what that might be like?
You bet. Yeah, we've, for about the last 15 years in one form or another, we've put on what we call the Academy Awards, and as you can imagine, it is a parody show. We have a program called Thumbs Up, Thumbs Down. And what that program does is it actually uses teenagers to monitor the amount of tobacco in popular movies that are shown every day. So we have a whole team of youth who are highly trained, and I'm delighted to say that it's been deemed university-caliber research, and it's used by advocates and educators and researchers all around the world. And they actually go out in the theater every single week and look at those new movies that are in the top 10, and they look at the tobacco content. And what's really great is not only are they counting if there's tobacco, but they're looking at how much and who's using it, because that's really important. Is it the star? Is it somebody in the background? And what really makes this powerful is they're telling us what the message is associated with that tobacco is. And this is really important because when you're talking to Hollywood and folks who are involved in the industry, a lot of times the message that we're thinking we're sending is not the message that's being received. And even further, the message that might be received by me as an adult is very different than the message that's going to be perceived by a teenager. So having their information and their reactions and what they think it means is really, really critical to this data.
That's a pretty interesting concept. I was thinking when you're talking there about, like in the I Love Lucy series or whatever, where somebody's just out and out smoking, you know, versus like background. I didn't, you know, in today's movies, I obviously don't see it. And then when, you know, from a teenager's perspective, that's a really cool thing to look at. So that's interesting to look at it from that concept.
Yeah, and why it's really important is, you know, there has been enough research now that, you know, obviously we all know that movies shape our, you know, what we want to look like, the clothes we wear, the hairstyles. There wouldn't be product placement unless movies were influencing our behaviors and attitudes. But what's happened over the last really 10 years, a lot of great research has been done, a lot of it by Dr. Jim Sargent in Dartmouth. I got to give him a shout out because he's done great stuff. And really what he has shown through lots of different there's probably been, he's probably done 20 different projects over that period of time. And so he's been refining it and refining it. And what's happening is we have found, and in fact, in the 2012 Surgeon General's report, it concluded that there is a causal relationship between seen smoking in the movies and smoking initiation among young people. So that's really profound. And so what Jim's research has shown is that you can say about 44% of young people are trying their first cigarette because of what they saw in a movie. So what that means is every day in the United States, the CDC is estimating that about 3,800 young people under, you know, the age of 18 are smoking their first cigarette. And of those, 1,000 of them are going to become daily cigarette smokers. So those are pretty profound numbers. So if you take that with what Jim's figured out, that means that there's, a little, almost 1,700 kids just today that are going to try their first cigarette because of something they saw in the movie. So when you do that to a year, that's over 600,000 kids who are starting to smoke because of something they saw in a movie. Those are big numbers.
That's incredible.
Yeah, and don't forget, that's just the U.S. So many of our movies go abroad. So if you look at the worldwide impact of seeing that, it's much larger than even that. So that's why this program is so important. Is we have got to create awareness, because what we have found, first off, is that once teens learn about this, teens hate being felt like they're being manipulated, so that's always a good thing.
Right.
So you tell them about this, they become aware of it, and what happens is there's an inoculation effect. And Connie Peschman out of UC Irvine has done some research on this, and what it shows is that once you recognize it for what it is, it doesn't have that same profound effect on you of wanting to try and that first cigarette. So, and again, this is just really, really critical because, more CDC data, it's more than 80% of adult smokers began smoking before they were 18. So the reality is, for all of our smokers, it's when they're kids. So we've really got to get to them so they just don't start smoking in the first place.
Yeah, I was at a 12-step meeting last night myself, and some of the people there were sharing that they started smoking cigarettes when they were 7, 8, 11 years old, and it's just, I was in law enforcement for a little while, and we talked about gateway drugs a lot, and that just really hit home when you were talking about that just cigarettes, how potent they are and how addicting they can be. So that's cool information.
Very addicting. And the thing is, it's, here in California, I think we've done a really wonderful job. Our smoking rates have actually declined. We have some of the lowest in the country. So we have a lot to be thankful for here. And really, since 1988, when we passed Prop 99, smoking rates by adults have declined. We were at about the 40%, and now we were down to about 13% in 2008. So, we've really done a great job.
That's great.
Unfortunately, the rest of the country isn't quite there. So, and again, so these are movies that are going out to the whole country. And so that's also something that's kind of fun and unique, is that what we're doing here in Sacramento with a local program is really having profound effects throughout the country and throughout the world. So
that's good work. It's got to feel rewarding for you and your staff to be so involved in that kind of work, and it's obviously got to be important if it's been going on since 1917. So, all right.
Definitely.
If somebody wants to find out more information about the Hack Academy Awards, how would somebody get more information about that?
You bet. Well, first let me tell you a little bit about the award ceremony, and then I'll tell you how people can get details. Because basically, so this is the program that the Academy Awards is based on. So that same group of kids every year gets together, and they decide who their award recipients are going to be. And what they do is they give either a big thumbs up or a big thumbs down to a movie, an actress, and an actor every year. So that they've done, and I can't tell you, it doesn't get announced until the 22nd. The event is February 22nd, and it really is an event for, it's geared towards young people. We'd like to get other teens there so they can learn about this issue, and that inoculation effect can start with them. And what happens is, so our kids that work all year long collecting all this data are our stars for the night. So we roll out the red carpet, literally, and we bring the limousine and we loop it around the block so that they can get out of the limo, and we have the paparazzi, and they come in, and they get all dressed up. It's a good chance to wear that prom dress, I guess. And so they come in, and they're actually the ones that do the program. So they hand out the awards, and they will honor and dishonor those that they think did the best job and the worst job over all of the movies they saw in 2012. And then immediately after that, there will be a teen-friendly after party where we're going to have games, we're going to have music from 107.9, we're going to have photo booths, we're going to have some snack food, just a lot of fun. Again, teens only, for parents who want to come. And, oh, by the way, it's free for teens as long as you get on our guest list. You have to call us, and I'll tell you how to do that in a little bit.
Cool.
As long as they tell us they're coming and we confirm that they're on the guest list, there's no cost. If adults would like to come, we actually do have an upstairs where it'll be a little more sedate. We have some live music. We have drinks and food, and a nice place to hang out while you wait, although there is a ticket price for that. So we do have kind of two different things happening for those who want to participate. And the way you can participate is there's really 3 things you could do. The first is you can go to our website at www.sacbreathe, that's SACBREATHE.org. And you'll see a link for the Academy Awards, and all of the information is there. The second thing you could do is you can give us a call here at 916-444-5900, and you can, if you hit 0, you can just ask for Erin, or you can hit 208, and you'll go directly to her, and she can get you hooked up and all of that. The other thing you can do, and especially if you're a teen, this might be the easiest thing, is you can go to Facebook, and you can like the Academy Awards page, and there's actually a place there to where you can join the event, and Erin will get back to you and confirm with an email that you're coming, and you'll be on the guest list, and you're good to go. So 3 different ways, depending on your flavor of engagement you want.
That's great. And I did want to say, Erin, my experience with Erin, producing the show and putting it together, is Erin's a great lady to work with. I just wanted to say thank you to Erin at this point for helping me get the show together. She's a great person. It was a real pleasure, and she's just a beautiful person to work with. So thank you, Erin, for helping me put this together. So
and I'll say thank you, Erin, for helping put the event together.
Yeah,
you're right. She is a wonderful person.
Yeah, she just did a great job and just did a really great thing. So anyway, so
good.
I didn't. Do you want to say any more about the Hack Academy Awards? I know there's your webpage is huge with a bunch of information, and I don't know if you want to talk, move on, or if you want to.
Again, we can talk a little bit just again about maybe why this is so important, because I think sometimes people don't necessarily understand that connection. But one of the things that we need to think about is, this is, first of all, more people die from lung disease or from lung cancer than any other cancer, than like breast cancer, any of those. So this is deadly. If you get lung cancer, it's not a very curable one, but it's preventable, and that's the thing here. The other thing is we're looking at the health costs associated with smoking in California, where, again, we have some of the lowest rates in the country. So our costs per person are going to be a lot less than anybody else. But in California in 2004, it was estimated that we spent $9.6 billion on direct health care costs associated with smoking. And that doesn't even begin to talk about the productivity losses because of early death or illness, and so people that weren't able to continue working or miss days until that runs into the $8 to $10 billion. So, so that's a cost to all of us. And so sometimes I don't think, people go, oh, well, it's my choice to smoke. And yeah, you're right. It is your choice. Please don't do it around me. Mm-hmm. But the reality is we're all paying for that. And if we even, we have tobacco taxes, of course. Ours are actually some of the lowest in the country because, unfortunately, the measure did not pass this last November. The tobacco industry came in and spent millions and millions and millions of dollars to defeat that proposition. Very frustrating because these are costs that we're bearing as taxpayers, and the cost of a pack of cigarettes doesn't even begin to cover any of this. I had read somewhere something that the tax would have to be almost $9 a pack to cover this cost. So we're paying that. So I think people need to understand that there is a direct cost to us. Every single individual in the state that pays taxes, we're paying for that. So that's why we've got to curb this. And I think what your comment earlier, it is such a horrible addiction. People say it's one of the hardest things to kick. And I have nothing but empathy for people who are trying to quit. That's why I want to get these kids to never start in the first place. They won't have to go through that. We won't have the health care costs. They're going to live longer, healthier lives if they just don't start in the first place. Yeah. So I think that people need to understand why this is important. And then, as with the link to movies, I think I shared with you a little bit about how prevalent it is, and it gets worse. It is really one of the most powerful pro-tobacco influences kids see. Again, in California, we've done a great job of restricting advertising, and, you don't see the big billboards, and, so it's not as, glamorous as it used to be. We don't have self-serve anymore. By and large, everybody really does card before you sell tobacco to make sure they're not a minor. So we've done a really good job. So if you think about it, where's the last place that tobacco looks really cool?
Mm-hmm.
In a movie. They're on screen, larger than life. They spend hours in hair and makeup. They look amazing. It makes smoking look cool. I'm going to share kind of a story with you that I have an 11-year-old daughter. As you can imagine, she's very anti-tobacco, and sometimes I think she's worse than I. Sometimes I'm like, no, you can't say that to people. No, but they should be 3 and saying things. Anyway, she's also, she's read all of the Tolkien books, so I took her to see The Hobbit. So everybody's going to say, okay, yeah, they were smoking pipes. Kids don't want to smoke pipes. And there's all kinds of arguments, right? Mm-hmm. So I'm sitting next to my 11-year-old daughter who, in this movie, he's smoking a pipe, and he blows this beautiful smoke ring. And she said to me, okay, Mom, I know it's wrong, but wow, that looks really cool.
That is really cool.
My 11-year-old, who hates smoke, if anybody smokes around her, she has asthma. She's just, get it away from me. Just the smell makes her nauseous. My 11-year-old was like, wow, that looks really cool. So you know that this has to have an impact on kids' decisions. I mean, there's just it's just undeniable. So that's why movies do make a difference. I know people often say that, well, it's not, I'm smarter than that. Yes, you as an adult, you understand, but kids don't. And that's the difference here.
Yeah, and it seems like it won't happen to me kind of a syndrome. Personal story for me is my father-in-law had smoked all of his life, the Marlboro Man and all the early movies, and so he got addicted early and ended up with a lung transplant and passed away a year after that. And so we saw him through some pretty brutal times, and family members that smoked, they saw him and they continued to smoke, and it just won't happen to me. That can't happen to me. And it's like, well, he's right there in front of you, and it's just an amazing, an addiction. It's just crazy. So, yeah. And I kind of question the stats, too, that they use. My father-in-law, his death certificate, the cause of death was unrelated to the cigarette smoke. It was related to his lung transplant, a complication with the lung transplant. It had nothing to do with, the cigarette smoking. It had to do with the lung transplant, a complication
but he would have
with
needed that lung transplant.
Yeah, so, it's one, I was just wondering how, what those stats would really look like if they, really looked at what caused that death. But anyway, that's my high horse.
It's a really good point.
Yeah.
That's very true. Well, and there's a lot of times too. I mean, you see 3 causes of death typically associated with smoking-related diseases, and that's obviously lung cancer is one of them, but COPD and ischemic heart disease. And so that's people I don't think understand so often that it's one of the prevailing causes for heart attacks too. So I mean, it's not just your lungs; it's your entire cardiovascular system that's being impacted. And you're right; he wouldn't have needed that lung transplant if he hadn't been that smoker. And so I love that. That's what they put. Complications from transplant. Okay. Yeah, but what caused the transplant?
Yeah. So they didn't address that. But anyway, that and he wishes, we had long talks, after he had his lung transplant, and he wishes young people, he didn't understand why, with all the education and all the movies and everything else out, about all the education, why they would start smoking, and he wanted, that to stop, and he wanted that to be his mission, but he didn't make it long enough. But anyway, so that was kind of,
but you're right. I mean, my father was also a 2-pack a day smoker growing up, and like he said, and he was one of these. He started when he was a teenager. I mean, luckily he actually kicked the habit, and now he's an absolute health maniac and is in great shape and doing wonderfully. But that was his thing. Is like when he started smoking, he said the worst thing they told me is that I was going to stunt my growth. Yeah. I was a sophomore in high school, and I was already 6'2". I didn't care.
Just on your growth.
Yeah. So, but you're right. But I think part of the problem too with with young people, and especially now what's happening since we have what's called the Master Settlement Agreement. So when all of the tobacco documents came out that showed that the tobacco industry really was manipulating the American public, and that they knew how addictive this was, and they knew how carcinogenic it was, but they were hiding it. So when all of that came to light, they did the agreement, which is when they settled with all of the states and the federal government, and so there's been, lots of other money that has been came out of that. Anyway, one of the things the Master Settlement Agreement did was that they had to agree that they were not going to market to teens. So what we've seen is they market very strongly to that college age. So again, they're that I'm going to live forever, I can quit whenever I want, and so that's one of the areas where we've actually seen some increases in our tobacco prevalence, because they've been out and out targeted by the industry, because let's face it, you have to replace your customers. They're dying off.
Right. All right, I'll say this because I'm a producer of this show and I can say it, but the American citizens go after the drug cartels, and they go highly after the heroin and marijuana importers, but they're not going after the tobacco industry, and I just find that kind of amazing that the American citizens just kind of sit by and let this and alcohol and stuff go on. But anyway, that's a whole different show, and that's my own personal. But as a producer, I can say that, so you didn't say that, I did.
Nope.
So anyway, I just find that amazing. But we have a couple minutes left, so I did want to, I know your organization has a lot more to offer than just the tobacco. I saw on there about the air pollution issues and all that. Would you be able to talk a little bit about other issues your organization offers?
Certainly. Air quality is a really key issue for us, and again, we here in Sacramento live in, unfortunately, one of the top 10 dirtiest air pollution metropolitan areas in the country, year after year, and it's not because of necessarily anything we're doing, it's because of our geography and our weather. We live in a bowl, and in the summer, it's hot, and that pollution literally just sits here in the bowl and cooks, and so, but unfortunately what that means is we're one of the least healthy places in terms of air quality to live. So, so again, really trying to make some changes. We've actually done really well. We've actually, in the last 40 years, we've made really big strides and have cleaned up our air quality significantly. But we still are what's considered a non-attainment area. So that means we still have a lot of health issues. So again, lots of education, looking at ways to mitigate. One of the things that we certainly advocate for is denser planning and infill and smart growth type of things, building where there's already existing infrastructure so that people aren't commuting in and spending all of their lives in their car. But there also are some issues that come with that. So we're looking at, how do you mitigate? So if somebody's living on a well-traveled along near a highway or a well-traveled road, what can we be doing to protect the citizens who live there? So we're actually, we do a lot of work with researchers around the country, and we're looking, for instance, at vegetation as a way that we could do barriers that would help protect people from that pollution that's coming from the street. So we do a lot of things. So really kind of everything we do here is got three-pronged stool. We do usually research, education, and advocacy around all of our issues, so that really is a comprehensive approach on how we might look at any problem. So right now we're really involved in the research stage, for instance, of that, and hopefully we'll be moving into more of the advocacy for changes in policies as we continue to tighten that research to see the impact. Again, really focus on young people. It's so much easier to get them to set good habits than try and fix our bad ones.
Right.
So we do a lot of programs around schools, and quite frankly, when it comes to air quality, they're one of our prime targets because children's lungs are still developing, and so we need to try and be very protective of those lungs. So, for instance, we put together what's called our air quality activity chart. It's keyed to the same colors that you see with the air quality index, but what it does is it gives parents, teachers, other caretakers, coaches, an indication of, okay, today's a red day, and I'm going to have the kids out for 15 minutes for recess. What do I need to do to modify their behavior? It's going to be a 2-hour sport practice, and today's orange. What specifically do I need to do? So to really help people, because it gets very confusing, I think, and there's a lot of messages out there. So we wanted something very simple that people could go, pull it up and look at it. And in fact, we actually have a free iPhone app if people are interested. It's called I Breathe. And if you go out there and download it, what you can actually do is it's got all that information I just talked about, but you can really customize it. So, I work in Sacramento, live in Roseville. You can choose both of those places, set what level you want it to give you a notification, and you'll get a push notification. So, again, I have a daughter who has asthma. My threshold might be lower that I want to know when there's, poor air quality. Someone else, they may only want to know when it hits red, and you'll actually get that information. And then what's really neat is you can then push right through, and it'll tell you what you need to do to modify your behavior because of that air quality. So again, a free tool trying to make it simple and accessible for folks so that they can protect their own health, but particularly the health of children, like I said, whose lungs are still developing. So lots of things for kids, teaching them to be better stewards of our air, helping them to identify when it's unhealthy and what they need to do to protect their health. So lots of things around education with air quality as well.
Well, great. I need to wrap up this interview, but I wanted to say thank you very much again to Erin, and thank you to Corey Titus for having this interview and for allowing me to interview her and put your nonprofit on the show here. And maybe we can do this again and have some more conversations about other programs you guys offer there, and have another conversation at some time in the near future.
I would love to do that. We've only begun to scratch the surface.
Right. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Right,
bye-bye.
And again, that was Corey Titus, the CEO of Breathe California Immigrant Trails, and I'd like to thank her again for the beautiful reception I had with her and her organization, and to Erin, who made it all possible. And this is Brian McKenzie saying, have the best day you can stand.